I'd like to pivot from story over to the world itself, because the world is such a superstar in this game, where when we all began the game, we start out in Limgrave, and Limgrave by itself is big. I mean, you're running amok, and there's beaches, there's hills, there's like windy areas, there's lightning areas. There's Stormvale Castle. There's even like parts of like a broken down, like really vertically tall bridge thing that doesn't exist anymore. There's a Colosseum area. There's a forest area. I mean, so much, and you're not able to really like take in, especially when you think of like the amount of caves and catacombs that also exist, and the south area. If you go south, and like you have the kind of the castle area down there as well. But then you suddenly have this aha moment. Well, it's not even aha. It's more like whoa moment, where you suddenly realize, hey, Limgrave is not all that there is to this world. And we go on this epic, blissful journey on Torrent where, I mean, territory after territory after territory get revealed. And not only that, but then there's even like territories that are underground, underneath the places that we've already discovered. And and they're huge. I have never seen a world this well thought out and high fidelity in terms. I mean, like they didn't skimp on the graphics. I mean, everywhere you go, my eyes were just like, wow, I'm going to stop fighting or stop running, and I'm just going to like really admire the view, because this is beautiful. But what do you think, Nick?
No, I mean, you nailed it. It's a spectacle for the eyes. Basically, you start out in Limgrave, and you're exactly right. You're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Look at that giant golden knight over there, and look at the way the trees move. And I remember the first time that it became nightfall, and I'm hearing all this crazy screaming and groaning, like, I'm like, what in the freaking heck is that? It's these guys up on these crosses that apparently only at night decide to yell a lot. And I was like trying to figure out where it's coming from. I'm like, is there some enemy? And I'm like sneaking around, because you just started playing, so you're terrified. So everywhere you go, you're crouching. It's like, nobody sees me.
Yeah.
So, and you're moving from bushes, and you run by a bush, and the bush talks to you. It's just, it's insane. And all the while you've got swamps and ravines and, destroyed beauty, right? I mean, and then you get, as good as that is, then you get inside Stormvale Castle, and it's just like, what?
Yeah.
This place is massive. Just the castle is massive.
Yeah.
Giant place. Beautiful. I took so many screenshots this game. I'm not a real big take screenshots, and go back and look at them later or anything like that. In most games I play, I took so many screenshots in this game of, whether it was the armor that I had on, or, the landscape, or a building or a castle or another NPC or something like that. It was just constantly, everywhere you would turn, there was something new to look at. And then of course we talked about Caelid. It's like you're walking on living leprosy.
Yes.
It's just decaying and flaking and fungus, and it's this weird pussy pink color that reminded me of an infected cyst or something like that, like a really bad staph infection. It's just gross, but at the same time, it's visually fascinating because it's such a sharp contrast to Limgrave, and then of course Altus Plateau. It's like the best day in autumn you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's so grand.
Oh, and everything's in golds and oranges and reds. And yeah, it's just this beautiful place. And I was just constantly blown away by how each place felt different and unique. And I honestly, I don't know how they crammed this much into one title, realized so well. And there isn't a lot of places anywhere you go, they don't feel the same. There isn't a lot of overlap. You know what I mean? No. So every place is unique. It has its own personality. I remember going into the Lucaria Academy and just being like, because I was playing initially, I was playing a sorcerer type, and I was like, well, this is my place. This is where I'm from. I am a sorcerer. These are my people. And it's like being in like really dangerous Hogwarts. It's quite terrible, actually.
With a lot of Burger King sorcerers.
Oh, yeah. I was rocking that Burger King helm for a while until I found something better. But, oh, yeah, absolutely. And so it's just interesting. And so you have these areas that not only are visually stunning, but you kind of, depending on what type of character you're playing, you kind of resonate with that area, and so there's that whole thing going on too. And they're characters each on their own, right? The landscape itself it's its own character, which is a real hard thing to pull off a lot of times in games, I feel like. And they really nailed it, where it's like they each have a very distinct feel that is very unique to them. The things you find there feel like they belong in that area versus another. From everything from enemies to items, it's a marvel. It
is. It really is. I mean, and Steve, I'm curious to know, since you don't, to my knowledge, you haven't really played like an open world game before this game, right?
Well, like The Witcher was open world. You can go anywhere in The Witcher.
Kind of though, but like, remember how like it would have those loading screens? Like if you wanted to go to like a completely different territory, you'd go to that map and then you'd have to select that like insignia, and then there'd be a loading screen that would load back up. And there wasn't like a seamless.
Oh yeah. Oh well. I mean, they're not seamless like this one is. I mean, it was not next gen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is one of the first. This one is like way open world. I mean, you can go anywhere.
Anytime.
Almost any time. Maybe you have to go through a catacomb to get there or something because you can't find the two halves of make the elevator work, but whatever. And so, but I mean, yeah. So again, I'm wandering around trying to figure out where I'm supposed to go.
But the wandering itself, though, like you clearly, I mean, because you were farther ahead than I was. The game was like the open world was designed in such a way where it clearly did a really great job of leading you, or I should say, like suggesting subtly, like, oh, you should go check out that location. And once you got there, then all of a sudden you see something else on the ridge, and you're like, oh, I wonder what that is, or like they really did a successful job in organically letting you, or I should say encouraging you almost.
That's the word I was going to use.
Go like, oh, I wonder what's in that cave. I wonder what's up on that hill. I wonder what's down in that swamp. Like, I mean, clearly you went through and you saw quite a bit of these areas, right?
I did. But I would disagree in the fact that they didn't encourage me to go like, okay, you need to go over here. All I did was go, I haven't explored this area yet. And I'm dying more over here. I'm dying quicker. Let's try this other place. I'm dying less here. Maybe I'll stay.
Yeah.
So that was more my thing of discovering how to progress through the game is, basically how much defense I had against what the enemy threw at me at any given spot. And so if I go, okay, I'm level 10 and I'm at Altus Plateau, like I'm not supposed to be here yet.
I'm not supposed to be here.
Like everybody's sneezing on me and I'm dying, and like I'm barely able to like recollect my runes before running with my arms flailing. So
I remember there was that one particular portal back when I was like super new, low level to the game. And it warped me into the Altus Plateau's capital city, and it had that one
giant,
that giant.
The Colossus.
The Colossus, yeah.
I just ran into him on my new playthrough.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it was the funniest thing because like I look at him and like again, this game is so good at making my butthole pucker because I'm just like I am not supposed to be. I'm looking around as a character. I'm like, this is beyond me right now. Like
beyond any of us. Run!
Yeah.
Run, you fools.
Exactly. Fly, you fools. But no, like I think that speaks to the quality of the game where like even those types of feelings that you have where like it's almost like a primal instinct. Like, even as a gamer in this fantasy world, you get to a place like that and you're just like, I need to get away now? How do I get out of here? I know I'm not supposed to be here at this point in time. And it wasn't just that particular spot, but also in terms of different locations and stuff. All of a sudden I would find myself somewhere else or whatever. And I don't know, like I said, it's so subtly done. It's not like they bonk you over the head with like a big old notification saying you're not supposed to be here. But instead, it's actually like it's so subtly ingrained where you as the player recognize that, you identify that, and then you change up your battle tactics, and you know you'll be back there later. But right now is not the time. And of course, you know, there are those moments too where like with that sleeping Colossus where you're like, I'll poke it, see what happens.
Yeah. That part though, I'm telling you, I forgot that I could just leave. Like I can just, you know, go to a different grace point. I forgot all about it. And I was like level 30 or something when I was there. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And I remember friends telling me like, oh yeah, it's just like Dark Souls, man. You know, man, you got to beat him. You're there. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like I can hardly even kill the regular soldiers and I got to fight this thing, you know? And then I finally beat him. I don't even know how many times. I thought it was like 3 nights in a row. I was stuck there. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Honestly. And I just kept on. Maybe I got lucky. It was whacking off his Achilles tendon, you know, enough so that, you know, he would lay down and be like, okay, I'm staggered now. I'm like, yes! Stab him a few times. And then, I finally beat him. Like,
you got your toothpick of a sword compared to the mass that is the Colossus.
I literally had like the first weapon I got in the game. Like, I don't even know if I upgraded it. Maybe I upgraded it a little bit, but it was like the first halberd. It wasn't even like a full, you know, spear and axe. It was just like a welded piece of metal at the end of a stick. And that's all it really was. I'm like,
got some aluminum foil and this toothpick.
I have a golf club. I'm set.
Yeah. Let's do this. Yeah. Nick, I'm sure that you have some comments about what we're talking about with regards to just the open world being the sandbox from a game design standpoint where, I mean, really, like the only game that comes close in my mind is probably Zelda Breath of the Wild. And that was more of a, you know, obviously it's an older game and it had more of a simplistic approach, but you can tell that From Software used that as kind of its foundation for what they built. And it's just insane how, despite it being so huge, that like, I don't know, it's like every time you'd see something that you want to go check out, you'd get there, and then there'd be other things that you'd see once you got there that suddenly would make you want to check stuff out. And, you know, to Steve's point, it's like, you know, if you run into certain enemies or whatever, like you would just know, okay, I need to like, you know, return and go a different direction. But did you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I kind of come from a different place where, you know, Steve is looking at it more from, okay, do I do combat here? Do I not do combat here? Me with the ADD, I easily get distracted and I love seeing new things. I would see something and I'd be like, well, can I get on that? Can I go up that cliff? Can I climb on that building? Can I go in that building? You know, whatever it was. And so I would just find myself going. I mean, I remember talking to you after I started playing and I ended up way over in Caelid, way too low level. I think I was like level like 12 or 14 or something like that. And I'm like, wandering around this like lake full of rot, like people chasing me. I'm dying left and right, you know, but I'm like, well, if I'm not supposed to be here, let's see if I can find some chests. Cause I bet the loot's real good. And I found like some pretty good loot running around there. But for me, I really enjoyed the fact that they created such an open world where literally you're not really blocked from any one place at any point in the game. There's some way to get through it. And I really liked their kind of their approach of that there's more than one way to skin a cat. Perfect example. He didn't find the 2 medallions to get up in the Altus Plateau. I did my first playthrough. My new playthrough where I'm starting a new game, not New Game Plus, I made a Confessor. I ended up finding the way that he got there. And I didn't even find that at all while my first playthrough. And I thought I was pretty thorough. So I really love the fact that it is so wide. It is so open. And you're right. There's always something new to look at. And it's like, well, can I go there? Or what's that over there? And for me, I love that kind of stuff. I love to explore. Anybody who's played games with me where they let you wander around in anything remotely like an open sandbox knows I try to climb everything, go everywhere, look at everything, find all the secrets. That's what I love to do. So for me, it was like a kid in the candy store because they're just like, here's our world. Have at it. You might get slayed, but you can go wherever you want.
Sure.
And I really liked being able to kind of do that. I will say the one downside is in doing so, I think that's part of why I missed certain characters' quests, because I probably went places I wasn't supposed to be when I hadn't, completed Stormvale Castle, or various other things. So, but it's a small complaint because the game's so dang good. I mean, as much as we complained about like the story and the lack of breadcrumbs and maybe needing to be a journal or something like that. So for those of us who are maybe a little bit more obtuse, to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's such a cool thing to just kind of be able to go anywhere, do anything, have this really organic experience because it is such an inviting world. It is such an intriguing world. There's always something interesting around the corner. You never know what you might find. And it's, for me, I was just like, I've had so much fun just wandering.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily trying to accomplish anything, just wandering and seeing what I ran into.
Yeah.
And that part of the game really endeared itself to me. And I feel like the way that they designed the different areas of the lands between encouraged it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely I think the experience that we've all felt as we went through the game. Now, I would also like to talk about obviously the combat mechanics, right?
Sure.
That is the bread and butter of the game. You get into these fight or flight situations, and especially when it comes to the demigod fights themselves. For me, one of the things about it is I loved how sophisticated the bosses, like the demigods, were in terms of their attack patterns. It was so challenging for me. And again, I was reminded of this when I was playing Sekiro, because Sekiro is the same kind of thing. But you have like a boss who like raises up their like sword or staff. They're like, and so like, meanwhile you're like, you're like flipping and doing somersaults like crazy until you run out of endurance. And you can tell that like they almost kind of, with some of those moves, they've timed out like, oh yeah, the gamer's totally going to be like in somersault mode and they're going to run out of endurance right about here, which is when we'll have the demigod go whack. But not only that, in terms of the animations, the movement, like, you see all those multiple layers of clothing, or
hair.
the hair, right. Or even like perhaps there's like some kind of ribbon that's off of like the enemy's sword or weapon, whatever it might be. There is something that's very romantic about it. There's a romanticism about how they've approached this. In a way that just they move so lifelike. It's not like tick, 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 there's like
not
this,
like the 16-bit era. Wow.
Yeah. 2 frames for a walk animation.
Legs here, legs there, legs here, legs there.
Yeah, exactly. And so, did you find yourself like I mean, I'm sure you did, but just share like a bit of like your response and your reaction to like when you came across those various bosses and your combat encounters, Steve, if you would please.
Sure thing, Russ. No, I agree with it. I mean, I think those were like literally the highlights part of the game, right? I mean, so they designed these bosses to be impressive, and they were impressive, and that's part of which
larger than life, I would say.
Yeah. Makes you larger than life.
Is that a boy band?
Yeah, that is a
song?
boy band. That was.
Yeah, boy.
I was working with a bunch of women who played that song nonstop. Anyway, so back to Elden Ring.
Yeah, let's do that.
So, switching back. So you have these incredibly designed bosses, and that's almost why you didn't really mind dying by them, because they weren't exactly cheap. Like, they want to combat you and you want to combat them, but like there's no exact pattern really. There's swinging styles, or like if they get ready to jump, like, okay, he's gonna jump because he's squatting now. The game that comes to mind is like Devil May Cry, for example. Like even though I like the number 1, number 2, when you would get to the boss fight, I remember them having such just static, okay, they're going to do this move, this move, this move, and then they're going to like retrace their steps, and that's when you had to shoot them or slash them or do whatever. Oh, then the same 3 moves, 1, 2, 3, and I thought, well, that just kind of takes out some, I mean, the game's still cool, but it takes out some of that unpredictability. Yeah, and the unpredictability is definitely very cool. And figuring out what they're doing to fight you, like their fighting style was awesome. And yeah, there was times where like I was the ultimate gymnast, like nobody in the world can out somersault me, and I was putting points into endurance because not only am I carrying around like lumbering the heaviest armor I can wear and swinging the heaviest sword I can, but I know that because I'm melee and I got to be like right front and center.
Your nose is like in the chest hair of the demigod. You're like, okay, you ready?
I got a knife that's this big, and I'm gonna stick you. Yeah, but I'm gonna cut your jugular. You're so close to you. I gotta cut your jugular. This is gonna be the knife fight of 1,000 cuts.
Yeah,
yeah.
Paper cut him.
3 hours later, okay, hitting the button. Enough cuts. Is he dead already?
Wait, they've got a second phase. Oh crap.
yeah, exactly. Second phase.
And so, yeah, right. Oh, that's happened too. Anyway, and so I got to see it really up close because I have to be kind of at a 6 foot length in order to do any damage. There was, I was never using my crossbow. I was never using any magic, and up until like the last part of the game, I wasn't even using any like spell buffs at all.
You just had your trusty weapon and just went for it. Yeah,
that's it. I have this huge stockpile of random junk that I'm just like, oh, a flower. I'm on torrent. Scoop that up, put it in the pile. Oh, what's this? Fragment of some kind. It's a stone. Put it in the pile. I mean, I think I have like 400 like
ruin fragments.
Yeah, or something like yeah. Anyway, so yes, back to the bosses. Fantastic, except for the Elden Beast, because the Elden Beast, you're just there and he's just kind of colorful and you have to get up close to him and he's just, there's nothing really romantic about that thing. He just looks like a glowy brontosaurus.
It's true. I mean, we can talk a little bit about the Elden Beast. I did think that phase 1 was awesome. Like you see the cinematic and you see Queen America being held up there, suspended, and then she comes down. Then all of a sudden you realize, oh, she instantaneously turned into
Radagon.
Radagon. Thank you. And so that whole initial thing where like, we've seen all of the cinematic trailers where you see them like, being a blacksmith and hammering this ring and whatnot, and with that anvil, I guess, and the hammer and whatnot. And so they're doing their thing. So now you come face to face with that same character that we saw way back when they had the teaser trailer, and I got goosebumps. I was like, whoa, okay, it's on now. And just the AoE damage that the character could do was pretty intense. But then it got to phase 2, and Nick and I have talked about this as well, where I found myself actually being a bit disappointed with the design of that particular phase of the character, because it looked like some kind of weird, what'd you call it, Nick? It was like a salamander or brontosaurus, or what'd you say it was?
Yeah, it looked like basically like a salamander and a brontosaurus had a baby, and then someone put a galaxy inside of it. Yeah. It was very abstract, and honestly, I just don't know if they ran out of time, which, I mean, hey, no judgment, because you guys put a metric ton into this game. Maybe it got to the point where like, I don't know, we got like 2 days left. Just put something in. I don't know.
We'll go with that design. That'll work. They're going to be at the end of the game anyway.
I can just see like all their creatives like, okay, look, you see everything that we've made right here. I am plumb out of ideas. Okay.
Galactic Brontosaurus. Here we go.
Yeah, exactly. What do you got, Frankie? I don't know.
I will say, I did think that the design of the inside of it was really cool looking. Like the whole kind of like the cosmos being caught in it. I thought that looked really awesome.
Yeah.
And its attacks looked really cool.
Yeah.
But
oh, yeah. The attacks. Yeah. Especially when he's attacking from afar.
Like really, really afar.
You don't have anything like, okay, I'm gonna stretch up my crossbow again and up. I can't reach you because you're all the way across the tree or whatever dimension you were. So I'm running over there.
You as a vagabond are getting your steps in.
Whack. Yeah. My little Fitbit was like just off the chart. Yeah. Yeah. No, I was like, man, you really lost a lot of weight. I'm like, I know. I'm ready to be Elden Lord. Can I have a nap? Yeah. So
Wow.
Golly. I made my mimic last a little bit so he could focus on him. Then I could run up to him and just like whack, 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 whack. Yeah. And then I whacked him enough time. And then, man, it was funny though, because when I watched you Twitch, you had more difficult. Yeah. What's wrong with them? Yeah.
You should get that looked at, bro.
Where
you definitely had more trouble with the first form because he was using more physical attacks. And the magic attacks, plus with the second form, plus you had stuff you can propel towards it. I thought, yeah, he's going to have no problem with the second form. It was complete opposite for me. Like I was, of course, robust. And like, you want to swing at me? Yeah. And then, he would just waste a little bit of life. He's like, here, holy magic. Bam. I'm like, crap. Son of a nugget.
I guess it's worth mentioning that so Steve was a vagabond in his first playthrough. I was the confessor class, and Nick mentioned earlier he was a sorcerer. So we had very different experiences.
Yeah, we probably should have said that at the beginning.
The Elden Beast sucked for me.
The Elden Beast did?
Yes. I died more there than any other boss in the game.
Are you talking about phase 1 or 2 or
phase
both?
2?
Phase 2.
I could wreck Radagon.
Really?
Radagon was piece of cake. I figured out his moveset. I could keep the distance and use my spells, and he was no problem. But I got to that Elden Beast, and he had the range that he had compared to the range of my spells. It just couldn't even compete. And then most of the spells don't have really good stagger. Some of the gravity magic does have decent stagger. And so I couldn't stagger him. And I think I told you guys, that was the first boss that I beat completely with melee. I just finally gave up on using magic at all. And I went in with my Wing of Estelle and just started swinging and using the Ash of War on that. And that worked great because then I was finally able to stagger the dang thing. And that was how I beat it.
Yeah.
So yeah, magic was not, at least for me, magic was not working. I couldn't do any of my old tricks I used on the dragons because even though he's big, he moves a ton. Yeah. So he doesn't stay stationary. So like my comment that you guys are like, oh my gosh, it's so cheap. It doesn't work on that thing because he doesn't stay still long enough.
He was still for you though. A lot. Because I remember watching the Twitch video and I'm like, man, he's not even going like nearly across the screen. You gotta, I mean,
he was doing that weird warping thing.
He didn't do it nearly as much. Like literally. Really? No. For me,
he was like Nightcrawler when I played him.
Oh my gosh.
Really?
Yeah.
Bamf, bamf, teleporting all over the dang place.
Yeah. I mean, literally, I would run up to him and he's throwing like waves of stuff at me and I'm jumping and I'd get right up to him. And then I'd go like just about to swing, and then he would just disappear, and then go back to the other side of the screen.
See, what's interesting was for me, and you guys already know this, but the phase 1 was hard for me because initially my strategy was like, okay, clearly this is the last boss. I'm going to like hold off on actually using my spirit summons until phase 2 because I'm probably really going to need him to be there. So like I wouldn't use the spirit summons on phase 1. And that was a huge mistake because I could barely chip away any of his health before. He would just overwhelm me with his AoE attacks and I'd just be taken out. The instant that I was able to actually kind of change up my strategy and go, okay, I'm just going to use the spirit summons now, that actually worked in my favor because then I was able to get through that part of it with not too much of an issue. And then the spirit summons would last, I would say, halfway through phase 2 and then get killed. And then I was able to survive barely. I remember when I finally took out the Elden Beast, my health was like maybe 20%. And I think I don't even know if I had any health flasks left. I think I may have had one left or something like that. So, it was a battle that was like well earned. I was pretty satisfied with that, but I love hearing the stories though. I love how we each have like our own story of how, and it wasn't even like limited to the Elden Beast. encounter, but like all these different encounters that we had, we all have our own unique story, or even like how we got to certain locations. I mean, there were several instances where like you got somewhere that was different than how I got somewhere that was different than from where Nick got. And it was just so fun to be like, you could hear the surprise in each of our voices. We're like, wait, there's another way. There's another. Oh, wow. And again, that just speaks to the replayability. I realize I'm shouting because I'm so excited about this game. I apologize.
It is great. I mean, it's hard not to. Yeah. I mean, from my combat experience, obviously playing a sorcerer, and I know, I've heard it from my friends who've been playing Souls games, people I know at work. Oh, that's not real Souls play. You need to do the sword and board, bruh, or just a sword. It's like, okay, but this was my first From Software game, so I chose the soft landing and I went with magic to start. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And the cool thing is that for me, it was a good introduction into the game because it did make certain things, especially at the beginning, a little easier. But the cool thing is that as I gained levels and as I gained experience, I started wanting to dabble in more things. So, I started leveling up like my Moonveil Katana, and I loved using that. And so I was starting to do more melee with that. And then eventually I got the Dark Moon Greatsword. And so I was using that for melee, not even just the big slashing attack it can do where it shoots out the crescent moon thing. And kind of getting a feel for more of that kind of combat and a few other items that I tried as well, to the point now where I've actually stopped playing my second playthrough, my New Game +2 or +1, New Game +1 on my Sorcerer. I actually stopped playing that for now, and I made a Confessor, and I'm aiming at being mostly just strength. I'm just getting enough basically faith and a little bit of intellect because I want to be able to use a couple different spells. I want to be able to use the Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength, and then the Scholar's Shield. And I'm going to run through and sword and board it with that and basically put the rest of my points into strength and try that. And I've been having a blast doing that. Totally different experience.
Yeah.
Definitely more difficult in some ways. And in other ways, there are things that have been easier. So that it's kind of interesting to see the balance between the two. And I think, if anything, that's another feather in their cap, is that there's how many different character types are there?
I think that
is it 10? Like 12?
Something like 8 or 10.
I was going to say 8.
Yeah, somewhere in that range. And they're all kind of like are set up, at least at the start, to kind of do something different. And each thing you try feels very different. So, I mean, on top of the fact that, you may not have experienced everything on your playthrough, and maybe you're gaining more of the story, there's these whole other ways to play. And so that draws you back into it. It's like, you can keep doing the New Game Plus, and there's some fun to be had in that. Or you can go like I'm doing and roll up a new character and head out into the lands between and have a completely different experience based on how you decide to encounter foes. Yeah. And it feels incredibly different doing it that way. And I think that's a testament to the combat mechanics that they've built in the game, both not only the enemies you fight and learning their patterns and learning how to fight them in a new way, but the fact that all these weapons feel really different from one another. And mace feels very different from a sword, even though you're swinging them both, they feel different. You use a flail, same thing. You go and use the claws. The claws are super fast, but you want to talk about death by 1,000 cuts, you got to get real close to those suckers. Man, are they quick. And so it's just, there's all these different ways to play. I mean, there is the bows if you want to do that thing. There's crossbow. I mean, you name it, they've got it, and they all feel unique. And for me, I'm like, okay, that's why I want to keep coming back. And that's why I said for me, it's the new Skyrim. I've been playing Skyrim for, I don't even know, 10 years, however long it's been out now. I keep playing it. I keep going back to it. I'm like, Skyrim's neat. I want to do Elden Ring, right? And so, because there's just so much to do, and it's a different experience each time, depending on what you decide to outfit your character with and how you roll up your stats.
Well, I will say, a little bit different experience that Nick is having than I'm having, because I'm just going to go through New Game Plus, and I'm like, I'm going to kill everything in XP. Like, literally, like, you've all killed me tons of times. I'm going to lay waste and be like, yeah, right. And it feels just great. I mean, it feels wonderful. But
I'm the Elden Lord.
You're right.
I am. Bow to me.
So, but what's been happening is, and I'm sure you've experienced some of this too, is that you get to a certain point and then they stop really letting you get stronger. And like, I think it's like around 60. Like after level 60, you're like, okay, well, you can go to level in like 99, but it almost takes twice the levels to even increase 1 point. And so like for me, it's all about strength and endurance and maybe, dexterity. And so like now I can get up to 333,000 runes and go, okay, I want to increase strength. Okay, notch that over. How much does that give me? And they're like, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
you've
do
reached
it
the hard cap.
over again. And I'm like, why is that? Anyway.
No, it's true. I mean, and 60 acts as a soft cap. They do allow you to continue going on, but really, like, those are the
80's
game
the hard
designers. Well, what was that, Nick?
80's the hard cap for most of the.
Oh,
of the
80.
stats.
Okay.
Yeah, at 80 at that point, like from what I've read, most people said there's really not any point to putting any more points in it because the gain is so infinitesimally small that you won't even notice.
Yeah, and really, I mean, that's just the game designers, by design. They're wanting to kind of wean you off of having these pretty sizable jumps. Like, when you start the game and you level up, they're giving you a pretty substantial amount of a bump from where you were to where you are going to within any one of those attributes. So, and plus too, I mean, like we've talked about this already. You are at a point, and really anyone who beats the game and they're going on like journey number 2 or 3 or whatever, you carry all of that over from the previous game. So, I mean, you are so insanely powerful from the get-go. Like, and this is, I mean, again, I totally respect and realize the fact that, if you want to do that, then that's your prerogative. You go right ahead. I mean, there's no judgment here. But I mean, one of the things for me personally was just that, like, while I do want to go through it at least one time at some point in New Game Plus to just be, like you said, just be this total badass and not be afraid of anything. What I'm more excited about and more looking forward to is being able to start with brand new classes, go through the game with those types of experiences, kind of like what Nick was talking about just now. Just because part of the game's magic has to do with that fight or flight response where, like, yes, you are a nobody. Yes, you are very weak. You could be killed very easily and you have to painstakingly earn your way through this world. Again, for me, like I think I get more satisfaction out of that. And especially considering the fact that when I compare this game to a game like Sekiro, Sekiro was intense all the time. And we didn't really talk about this with Elden Ring, so I'll just mention it really quickly. But in Elden Ring, what's nice is that there are the kind of like peaks and valleys, right? Like and it's all your choice. If you decide you're going to go and you're going to have some sort of like crazy intense battle, that's on you. That is your call to make. If you would rather just take a nice leisurely stroll with Torrent and you're going and you're discovering loot and you're exploring new vistas and locales and that sort of thing, that's a much more laid back experience. And that was something that, like, to me, I welcomed just simply because, I mean, I was gearing myself up for Sekiro Part 2 and was just very pleasantly surprised how different this game was. And I know I've been referencing Sekiro in this kind of real intense way or intense light, but I mean, Sekiro is one of my all-time favorite games too. It was a game that, like, the game was so well made. It was like I would get enraged because of how hard it was and how intense it was, not because the game cheated me or because there was any kind of cheap kind of stuff going on. It was the fact that I, as a gamer, recognized that I was being outclassed by the AI and I had no excuse other than the fact that I had to get good.
There is one little cheap thing they do, though.
What is it?
I know I'm totally like, I'm like the only one playing devil's advocate here.
Are you talking about in Sekiro?
And in Elden Ring.
Oh, Elden Ring. Go ahead.
So if the enemy knocks you down and you're laying there, just laid waste, you're like, totally, you got to get up.
Give me a minute. You knocked the air out of me.
You can still get hit and die. But if you knock someone down and they're just, just flat out, you cannot hit them again until they get up.
True.
Some enemies you can, but it's mostly the big ones that'll let you hit them when they're down. But that's because that's part of the stagger mechanic. But I know what you mean with like the knights and stuff. There's like that period where you can't hit them, and that really sucks. That got me killed a lot right when I started playing.
You reminded me when you said knights too, but we didn't even talk about the fact that like the world itself has almost like a changing of the guard based on when the sun goes down and the moon comes up, right? Like when you have totally different enemies that all of a sudden reveal themselves only at night versus enemies that are only around during the daytime. And again, that's just part of the ecosystem where I'm like, dude, that is so cool. Anyway, we've been talking for probably 2 hours now.
Yes.
My butt's asleep, Russ.
My butt bones are feeling a little sore.
I need a massage.
I'll massage you.
I want to go home.
I won't give you that.
Just kidding.
Yes. But what I would like to do is
Keep talking. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, we're gonna keep going for another 2 hours. No, I was just going to say, let's wrap up by, if there are any other types of comments that you have that, for whatever reason we weren't able to cover, you can definitely say those now and just, give us your thoughts in terms of, we'll start with you.
Oh,
Your overall review, rating of the game.
well, I would say thank you for pushing us to play the game.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yes.
Because I would have totally passed on it, Russ. I would have passed on it and then never looked back and ever given it a try. And then maybe I would have heard someone say something about it, maybe not, but I probably never have ever tried it.
Ever.
That being said, totally different experience. We all talk about these different classes of characters that we've played, and we've all had different experiences, but we've all had similar experiences at the same time, which I think was really a testament to the design or the play mechanics that have gone into this game. And I never played anything quite like this one in terms of dying is a part of the game. Like, you die not because you're terrible, you die because it's intentionally very difficult for you. And it's intentionally difficult for everybody. Everybody is going to go through this hardship journey with you. And so it's not to say that you're a bad character or you're bad at the game. We want you to become like confident in your abilities of the character that you've selected and triumph. And when you triumph, it's like mini celebrations. It's not confetti or anything, but they really make you feel good that you've felled some incredibly beautifully designed boss, right? And if you have to try again, they prop you up and they put you those grace points just in like the perfect, beautiful spot. Like I can remember there were times where in Stormvale where I would wake up in this grace point and the wind would be blowing through the trees and I could see rain coming down too, and I could see shafts of sunlight coming in and leaves blowing, and I'm like, I am going to sit here and be thankful I'm alive again before I continue playing the game. And then I would go forward and I can't even tell you how many times I died with Melania, and I was not irritated. I was not cursing the game. I was not cursing the character. I wasn't destroying my controller or, having to splash water. I mean, like, I need to go for a walk and cool off or something. I can't even. I wonder. Like, there's got to be a way to figure out how many times you died in the game. There has to be.
They need a counter. They need a death counter.
They do.
And it's funny, like you watch some of these YouTube creators. Like we've texted a bunch of them back and forth, and like they capture the essence of the game that everybody has played through and everybody has laughed at, or not necessarily cried at, but like just can't get past this part sort of thing. Anyhow, it's just funny how we've all had these different experiences, but they've all funneled through the same experience. I haven't played anything like it. I do have my qualms. I was thinking I was the only one pissing and moaning over here.
Would that be different from any other day?
Like I said, I felt them in the beginning and I felt them through the end of the game, and I kind of still feel them now. But so I wouldn't say it's like a perfect game in that sense, because it irks me that I have to do so much work to find out what I want them to have me find out, right?
Yeah.
But anyhow, that being said, my rating for the game would be
We're doing it out of 10.
out of 10.
Yes, when we do game reviews and we do the numerical system, movies are the star system.
Are they, Russ?
Yes.
Then I would give it a 9 out of 10.
A 9 out of 10.
A 9 out of 10.
You know, I do think there are a couple of things that come to mind with what you're talking about in relation to you, where, first of all, I think it was worthy of merit to talk about the fact that we all die so many times in this game, but part of the secret sauce of the game is we are motivated to try again and try again and try again and try again. There are very few and far between games that have figured out, again, this is all within the code. Like this is not by accident.
Right.
This is very intentional by the game developers. They figured out that they could absolutely punish us and still give us the desire to fight again.
A comparison I would say is like when I was playing like Halo 4, I think it was, and I was dying a bunch at Halo 4, and it just dawned on me, like, I'm not having a good time here.
Yeah.
Like, I want to finish the game, but I really don't care to finish it in a hurry or keep, like, I'd rather just put it on the shelf and play something else. Like, it was different because I died a ton, but there was nothing compelling me to go forward other than just like, okay, I want to see the ending.
Yeah.
But I'm not having a good time with it.
Yeah.
And this was totally different. It was the opposite. Yes, I want to finish the game, but I would get absolutely annihilated and still have a wonderful time.
Well, and that leads me to the second point I was going to make with relation to you, in the sense that even after you've beaten the game, what's interesting is that you bring up on your Xbox Series X, you have your whole game library there, and you continue to choose Elden Ring out of all the other games. I mean, Steve being like, he's a big, racing fan, right? Like, you love Forza and all that kind of stuff. You go to Elden Ring.
Right.
And I think that is very telling in terms of the fact that you are just really having a wonderful time in this world, so much so that even after you've beat it, I don't even know how many hundreds of hours you put into it the first time, you're already going through it a second time. And then with the friends that we've mentioned on the program, they've gone through 9 times. So anyway, just thought I'd add that in there. Nick, please, sir, would you be so kind as to share with us your concluding thoughts as well as your rating of Elden Ring?
Okay, I'm going to keep it quick because the viewers may not know this, but I'm on my phone for video and it's going to die soon. I forgot to plug it in before we started because I wasn't expecting to do it this way. But that being said, for me, the game, it just checks so many boxes. And just to echo what you guys were just saying, the secret sauce of the game is that it compels you to come back. No matter what's going on, no matter how frustrated you get, you're like, you just want to try it again. You just want to pick up the controller and try it again. And I think the big kudos is that there isn't a lot of things that seem cheap. There isn't this weird AI increase when you're doing really well and it goes, let's put you back in your place now. When you die, it's because you made a mistake or multiple mistakes.
Yeah.
And that alone was the thing I think that surprised me the most, because I thought I'm just going to get frustrated. And to echo again, Steve, like, thank you for convincing me to play, because it's one of my favorite games ever. And I just thought, I'm going to die all the time. It's not going to be fun. I'm going to waste my money buying this game. It's, oh boy, whatever, but I'll try it. You keep saying to try it. I'm going to try it. And I was most surprised by the fact that, I could die over and over again. And I heard every death yell possible that there is in this game. And there are many, and they're all funny. I kind of get a kick out of them at this point. But yeah, you just want to keep trying. And it really speaks to something that they've captured that I don't really know that any other developers have really done as well. And it's a kudos, a feather in their cap to From Software that they've been able to do that. I love the game. It's inspiring me to play other characters and do new starts and, to branch out, maybe try some of the other games and bang my head against those walls and get good, So for me, the game, I have the same qualms as Steve. You weren't the only one who has issues with it, Steve. I tend to agree with you in regards to it could be better at giving you as the protagonist a clear line of why you're there, why you're doing what you're doing, and why it's important. And I'd say that's probably my only real issue with it. While I don't mind going and to see other resources to learn more and taking the time to read all of the items and, that sort of thing, that's not for everybody. And even for me, it's like my time is limited. And he's right. Like there's a couple videos I've watched that are an hour long, going over various parts of the lore or various histories about various characters. I do think that aspect of it is the only thing I could knock it down, but I have a hard time not giving it a 10 because I just enjoy it so much. Even that aside, I mean, I guess it just depends on how specific you want to be of what is the perfect game, and a 10 being perfect. I guess I'd say 9.5. I'm gonna give it not quite 10. And I reserve my 10s for a game that just does everything right. And I think this game does pretty much everything right, except I do wish that the story was more easily consumed in a way that makes sense. And that's the only knock I can give on it. Other than that, I love the lands between. I'm going to be spending lots of time in the lands between. And like I said, it's my new Skyrim. It's the game I just keep going back to, and I will keep going back to.
Well, you both have really given some great insight as to why you guys have loved the game. And I totally agree. I'm right there with both of you. It's interesting for me because I really was not going to play another From Software title after Sekiro. And I'm glad. I'm really grateful that I decided to give this one a chance, because having not played any of the Souls games, I knew that Sekiro was a different beast altogether. It was not the same, but that Elden Ring seemed to be more or less in the same vein as like a Souls game that they've made in the past. And they have really concocted this really special title in the sense of that the game design just works. And it's not so much, I don't know. I think the biggest kind of takeaway for me is that it caused me to realize that I, as a gamer, have been conditioned when I play an action RPG to expect certain types of things to happen or occur, whatever the case may be. And this game showed me a completely new way to experience what an action RPG could be. And it forced me to reevaluate some of my muscle memory, some of just what my expectations are within this genre. And once I was able to get my mind wrapped around that, suddenly the brilliance of the game really came out. And that's something that is, I do see from time to time, especially in Japanese game developers, is that they intentionally break you down as a gamer and penalize you if you try to rely on kind of like the classic tried and true kind of things of what just typically what you do, right? Best kind of example I can give is the right trigger is gas and the left trigger is brake. Or if I'm playing a fighting game, odds are if I do a half circle and the A button or X button or something, there will be some kind of fireball that shoots out or whatever, there's certain things like that. And a game like this says, no, that's not how we do things here. And once you embrace that, and I think I was talking to you guys a bit about this too, about how the best way to approach a From Software title is to be water, which is in the sense you flow around all the different obstacles that From Software has put in front of you, and you adapt to the roadblocks that are there. The roadblocks could be a boss you can't defeat. The roadblocks could be a certain item that you just can't find, or whatever the case may be. But the point is that you learn to just kind of roll with what's going on. And instead of banging your head over and over and over again on something that clearly you're outclassed by, be water, go back the other way, go and see what's over on this side of the world instead. And suddenly it's like, wow, like that's where the genius comes in, because once again, it's like this realization as a gamer where in other games and older games, I would just constantly be banging my head against this thing because there were no other options. Like you just had to get past this part. But in this game, they took, the bumpers out of the lanes, so to speak. And they said, just you have free reign. You go do what you want to do and we'll see how you fare. And I think, my goodness, like that right there is such a big part of the secret sauce of this game. I do think there are certain types of issues. I do think, as we discussed earlier, that the lack of a journal feature was a bit of a bummer. The fact that they have this great story in place, but it wasn't in the game. It was not done in such a way where I was able to soak it up. I do think that was a bit of a drawback as well, despite the fact that, doing more research and looking online, that sort of thing, having a better understanding made it less obtuse. The other thing I would say too is that the UI is, I would say, not as good as it could be. I think that it seems to be kind of like an outdated UI.
Yeah.
And especially considering the fact that we're in next gen systems, and UI UX design has come a long way. It just didn't have a certain sophistication to it, which is saying something, because so much of the core game itself is sophisticated. There is a lot going on under the hood of this game. So those little things I would say knock it down a bit, but honestly, those are very small gripes that I have in what is otherwise a complete and utter masterpiece of a game. Yeah. So I think I'll probably give it a 9.5 out of 10, just because those little things, it's almost like seeing like a brand new Lamborghini and there's just, one or two little nicks in the paint from gravel from driving it on the freeway that prevents it from being like perfect 10. But my goodness, I mean, I think I can speak for all three of us when I just give a heartfelt thank you to From Software for making this game. I don't know if they plan on making a sequel to it or whatever, but I can say that, there are other titles like Bloodborne that we haven't played yet. Any of the Souls games, I know Demon Souls got a remastered on PS5 recently, but really I'm curious to see what is in store for us in the coming years, because my goodness, like they really know how to make a memorable experience. So anyway, that wraps up this episode of Joygasm. I want to thank Nick for joining us. Yeah. Thank you very much, good sir. Really
Thanks
appreciate it. Anytime.
Always a pleasure.
If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to check out patreon.com/joygasm, where you can enjoy exclusive perks and early access to the show. Not to mention, it financially helps us continue doing the podcast. Also, make sure you click on that subscribe button as well as that notification bell. That way you will not miss a single episode of Joygasm. It drops once a week, every week. And while you're at it, you could do a search on social media for @JoygasmTV. We're on all of them, and you can become part of the Joygasm community that way. And last but not least, do a search for Joygasm TV on Twitch to see us stream our gaming adventures live every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Central Time. We will look forward to hanging out with all of you once more next week.